Hey everybody, this is Marley K. Hope all are well. I have a story that I want to bring to you. It's really interesting, but it is in line with the smart cities. And it's something that if you live in a major city or close to a major city, you shop in a major city, you enjoy cities, you need to understand where this smart city technology is going to take us. Um, it reminds me of the scripture where it talks about peace and safety. When they talk about peace and safety, or they promise peace and safety, then comes sudden destruction. It really feels like that, although it's not as drastic as the scripture describes. But it's along the lines of how the powers that be will tell you, oh, if you let us police you more, you'll be safe, you'll feel safer, and people buy into it foolishly without giving it any thought. It's just anything lazy to delegate your personal behavior or your community's behavior, and not dealing with the issues that make people misbehave terrible. You want to delegate that responsibility to someone else. And then when those people actually get their way and they turn on you, you're shocked because they've turned on you. So I want to talk about that today. So this story was dated February 6th, 2023. It is in Wired, and it is titled Inside Safe City, Moscow's AI Surveillance Dystopia. And so I've been telling you about smart cities and AI technology for a little bit. Uh, and I talk about it specifically because I understand how this predictive policing is going to impact African Americans. And again, this can happen to anybody. It's talking about Russia, but I want people in America to understand this whole piece and this internet technology, this AI surveillance. They're going to sell it to you as one thing, but it is going to turn into something else quickly, and you're not going to be able to undo it. So a lot of these cities already have this technology, and people aren't raising any hell about it because it's quiet. Everybody feels it's fine. Police aren't aggravating anybody, but you need to understand what's coming with this technology. And you don't offer any pushback now, it will be too late later, as you're going to see in this article. Moscow promised residents lower crime rates through an expansive smart city project. Then Putin invaded Ukraine. And I apologize in advance because I'm going to butcher these names, but I don't speak Russian. So, okay. Sergei Viborov, I'm going to say Viborov, was on his way to Moscow's metro's aeroport station last September when police officers stopped him. The 49-year-old knew that taking the metro could spell trouble. During a protest against Russia's invasion of Ukraine, police had fingerprinted and photographed him. He'd already been detained 4 times in 2022, but he was rushing to his daughter's birthday, so he took a chance. Viborov wasn't arrested that day, but the police informed him that he was under surveillance through Sephora, one of Moscow's face recognition systems, for participating in unsanctioned rallies. Now, check this out. So, because he exercised, and I don't know if in Russia he has a right to protest or not, but because he chose to protest, he became uh, you know, a victim of the state's surveillance program and a part of their face recognition system. So anytime that he moves about, he can be stopped, and they have a right to question him. Considered one of the most efficient surveillance systems, Sephora led to the detention of 141 people last year. Facial recognition and video cameras in general in a totalitarian state are an absolute evil, Viborov says. So remember this: facial recognition and video cameras in general in a totalitarian state are an absolute evil. We don't live in a totalitarian state. We're becoming a totalitarian state. And it seems like people who should be liberal and all for freedom just seem to be the people who are agreeing to this totalitarian state, this AI surveillance state. Now, I'm going to take it back to race because to me, everything is centered around race. White people didn't have an issue with surveillance as long as they weren't the one being policed. And this is a situation where your indifference has come back to bite you in the butt. Because if you were all for human rights, you would have known that the way that we were policed, African Americans, even during slavery, slave patrolling, if you had done something about that, we wouldn't be here where we are today. But because you're so indifferent and tolerant of maltreatment of other groups, and you don't care until it touches you. Now it's touching you and you care, but now by the time it but by the time it reaches you, it's too late to do something about. And because you all are so accustomed to not being policed and surveilled, you don't realize how close you are to danger until you're there. So I'm going to continue with this story, but we're going to talk about it a little bit. Vibora finds himself at the bottom of a slippery slope that privacy advocates have long warned about. Under the guise of smart city technology, authoritarian and democratic governments have rolled out huge networks of security cameras and used artificial intelligence to try to ensure there is no place to hide. So it don't have nothing to do with safety or peace at the end of the day. It has everything to do with making sure they know where you are and what you're doing 24 hours, 7 days a week. Cities have touted the ability of such systems to tackle crime, manage crowds, and better respond to emergencies. Privacy campaigners say such systems could be used as tools of oppression. In Moscow, Viborov and countless others now face that oppression on a daily basis. The Russian capital is now the seventh most surveilled city in the world. Wow. Across Russia, there are an estimated 21 million surveillance cameras. Oh my God. Can you imagine? 21 million cameras. Oh. And the country ranks among the top in the world in terms of the number of connected surveillance cameras. The system created by Moscow's government, dubbed Safe City, was touted by city officials as a way to streamline its public safety systems. So see, this is how they sell it to you. They sell it to you as public safety, but really it's the foot in the door to totalitarianism. And here in America, unfortunately, white people love their police because what? The police ain't never watching them. The police are always watching other people, otherness, black people. Police them black folks. Yes, they're terrible. They need more police. Yes, blue lives matter. Well, guess what's coming to y'all? We know how to live under surveillance. We know how to deal with the police. Now, what this new system is going to do in line with protesting in opposition to government laws and policies and so forth. Like, we don't really know yet because we haven't had to deal with it because all of our cities aren't smart cities. But what is going to happen is that public safety is moving quickly towards totalitarian totalitarianism and 24-hour surveillance. So here in recent years, however, it's 217,000 surveillance cameras designed to catch criminals and terrorists. And those things have been turned against protesters, political rivals, and journalists. And so there's not going to be any place for us to hide because right now, the Biden administration has passed this infrastructure bill, and all this money is going towards broadband, new towers, smart cameras, smart cities. You can ride in and out of any city, and you'll see a sign that tells you in advance you're entering a smart city. As you enter that smart city, it is getting your picture of your car. If you're on bike or walking, it's getting a picture of your face. So you're not able to hide anymore. When you go into a smart city, you're on camera. Facial recognition was supposed to be the cherry on top, the reason why all of this was built, says former employee of Intech Lab, one of the principal companies building Safe Cities face recognition system. So this is one thing I never understand. Why these people cooperate with this stuff and they never think about down the road how it's going to turn against them. And I've come to the conclusion that because most of this stuff is designed by white people, and I personally believe that it's fallen angel technology, and because they are at the top of the social hierarchy, never really being impacted negatively by hardly anything. This they can't imagine themselves under surveillance. They couldn't imagine being accused of being criminals or treated like criminals. And they can't imagine not having any freedom because they've never had to live in a society where they were oppressed. So they're going to be the ones who are most devastated by this smart technology, smart cities, smart cameras, this AI surveillance, because it is going to be turned against them. And now they are treated as criminals, whereas we've always been treated like criminals. So, in my opinion, for African Americans, it's just going to be a walk in the park outside of, if we are happen to be recognized as being somewhere close to a gathering or some sort that the government deems inappropriate, then you're going to be under surveillance because of it, because your picture or car tag or your photo of you was documented as being in the area that they said you shouldn't have been in. Or maybe you went to a political rally and you're the enemy of the rival, or just people who work for the rival decides they want to target you. So it's just going to be crazy. Anyway, carrying on. Following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Safe Cities data collection practices have become increasingly opaque. The project is now seen as a tool of rising digital repression as Russia wages war against Ukraine and dissenting voices within its own borders. It is an example of the danger smart city technologies pose. And for the engineers and programmers who I could just kick up the pants because they did not think that this would impact them or us in this way eventually. Its transformation into a tool of oppression has led to a moment of reckoning. Like always, like I don't even know what to say about these people, but anywho, an innocent start. Founded in 2015, Intech Lab caught the attention of global press with the February 2016 launch of Find Face, an app that allowed anyone to identify faces by matching them with images gathered from social network vContact vContact Russia's Facebook equivalent. And so our technology has been used the same way. So when you put pictures on social media, you tag where you are, you do live streams, you go live. This is what all this technology is used for. The government collects it, they put it in a database, and then they use it against you. So pat yourselves on the back for loving free stuff and being foolish. Met with warnings of the end to public anonymity, the app was reportedly downloaded by 500,000 people within 2 months of its launch. But for Intech Lab, it was primarily a proof of concept of the nascent face recognition algorithm. So you see here where they always offer it to you in a free application. There's always something free to get you to think that it's safe and that if you use it, there's no harm. Everything, if it's free, it got strings attached to it. And sadly, we're all going to learn the hard way about this technology. Even if we're trying to use it for good, it's still going to be used against us because too many people don't understand the reason that it's free. It's almost like we are a placebo group or part of a um, clinical trial without knowing or without them ever acknowledging that we're in a clinical trial. Intech Lab still felt like a startup when one former employee who asked not to be named for privacy reasons. Imagine that. Want to be not named for privacy reasons while infringing on folks' privacy. Joined the company, and he was drawn in by the complexity of the work. From an engineering point of view, it's very interesting to work with. It's difficult, he says. After the release of Fine Face, Intech Lab begins selling its face recognition tech to small businesses, such as shopping malls that could use it to catch shoplifters or see how many people return to certain stores. So we're always under surveillance. But Intech Lab was also working with Moscow Department of IT Technology, DIT, the government department tasked with building Moscow's digital infrastructure. In 2018, when Russia hosted the FIFA World Cup, Intech Labs face recognition tech was connected to more than 450 security cameras around Moscow, and its tech reportedly helped police detain 180 people whom the state deemed wanted criminals. Now, can you imagine if this technology was hooked up across America and say you had an outstanding warrant for something, I don't know, or you were wanted for questioning and you were trying to evade capture. You could just get in your car and go to Philly and have lunch with your girlfriend and want to get away for a day. And but you live in, say, Tennessee. They could use that surveillance to detain you without your permission because you've used social media and other sites or used apps where you downloaded pictures and gave access to your permission on your phone. So they have permission to use your photos. Like this whole thing is just insane. At its inception, Moscow's face recognition system officials was fed official watch list, like the database of wanted people. The system uses these lists to notify the police once a person on the list is detected, but law enforcement can also upload an image and search for where a person has appeared. Over the years, security and law enforcement agencies have compiled a database of the leaders of the political opposition and prominent activists, according to Sarkis Darbinian, co-founder of digital rights group Roskomvoda. I don't know how to say this. I apologize. I'm butchering this name, which has been campaigning for a suspension of the technology. Now, do you see this? This person created a company or I guess an agency to campaign for the suspension of this technology. It remains unclear who's in charge of adding activists and protesters to watch list. So you can be at a protest, you could be somewhere minding your own business and somebody upload your picture that they got from some other place because now so much stuff is public. Could be a driver's license record, passport photo, could be a picture of you in a mall where somebody, had you under surveillance. But the bottom line is there is a lot of funny business going on with this technology. And once you relinquish your power, you don't get it back. Like this seems to be the last frontier when it comes to privacy and human rights. In March 2019, following the success of the World Cup trial, some of Russia's most wanted people were arrested while trying to attend marches. While trying to attend matches. The Moscow Department of Transportation, which operates the city's metro, launched its own surveillance system, Sephora. By October 2019, 3,000 of the city's 160,000 cameras were enabled with face recognition tech, according to Interior Minister Vladimir Kolokostov. Intech was one of many companies building the slew of systems that would later be branded Safe City. International companies from the US tech firms such as Nvidia, Intel, and Broadcom to South Korea's Samsung and Chinese camera maker Hikvision worked alongside local firms such as Headpoint, Netris, and Rostelecom that have developed various components of the surveillance systems. According to procurement documents cited by the UK's BBC, 3 companies besides Intech Lab created face recognition tech for Moscow's growing surveillance apparatus, including Tevian and Kaipa and Vision Labs. Moscow's transportation department said in social media posts that Sephora was built using Vision Labs technology, although the company downplays its involvement. So, anyway, I'm not going to continue to go into this, but I just want you to know that this technology is out here and it is in our country. We're not talking about it in the same way like this article is talking about it, but it's really bad. And if you don't fight back, push back against this constant technology and knowing all things, I tie it to the free broadband, free tablets, phones, computers, smart cities. Here it's talking about AI surveillance, facial recognition, the police cameras, scanning tags and collecting the data. There's just so much surveillance, smart IDs, real IDs. We are really heading towards this surveillance dystopia world. And I don't think people are really paying attention to it. So if you live in a city, I would definitely try to get out of it as best I can as quickly as possible. Not that the rural areas aren't going to be under surveillance, but there's really not much to surveil outside of coming in and going out of a city, coming into going out of a city. Um, we're going to be in prison, and we're headed towards totalitarianism. So, as I've always said, we don't live in a democracy. We live in something else. We live in a republic, and the republic is quickly turning into a totalitarian state. So, read this article. Make sure you click on the links because there's some really good um, data and stories in here about the evolution of AI and how it's going to harm us. Black people really need to be paying attention because they have this technology already in your cities. All they have to do is decide this is the day that we're going to start hunting down people who participate in protests, who oppose whatever leaders or laws that we're trying to enact. And then you're disappeared. Then you're incarcerated. Then you're beaten to death by police because they will have the power and authority to do that. So, with that said, please think about this technology. Tell your friends and family members, start looking when you're around, when you're driving in your car. Look at the surveillance on the poles, look at the surveillance cameras at stoplights. Um, when you go in stores, when you go in malls and other public spaces, look at all the surveillance everywhere. If you have smart technology, think about how that stuff is going to be snitching on you. And then figure out how you're going to counter it, or if you're going to counter it. You may be fine with the peace and safety um, promises and not really concerned about how those things will be used against you eventually. They're going to be used against us. And sadly, if you're looking for the dominant society to fight back, they won't, because in their minds, they're not bad people. We're African American Black people are bad people, and they need to be protected from us. We didn't create this technology. We're not creating the rules for this surveillance. We're not creating this facial recognition crap. It's just created to be used against us. And it has been used against us. What the dominant society uh, doesn't understand is that it is getting ready to be used against them. And when it gets to that point, it's too late to turn back from. It's almost like the war on drugs. You know how with the war on drugs was going into Black communities and locking up parents, giving Black people these life sentences, three strike laws, no help, no counseling or nothing. People just strung out, dying. They're taking crack babies, putting them in foster homes. And now white people have an opiate problem and they're committing suicide. They get Narcan to bring them back to life because their lives matter. Um, there is nobody going into their schools and their communities telling them how to stay off drugs. They just get help and sympathy, and people have empathy for them. Or should I say, white people have empathy for themselves, where they didn't have any for us. It is going to be the same way with this surveillance dystopia. The AI surveillance is being used on us now, but it's getting ready to be used on white people. And they're not going to like the way that their freedoms are infringed upon and how they don't have any rights. And they're essentially giving them away. So, with that said, I just want to ask you to keep in mind what is coming down the pipe and be prepared for it. Look at what's going on around the world because it's happening here. We're just not talking about it because everything is directed or orchestrated by the media. And it doesn't become a problem until they tell you it's a problem. But what you don't understand is soon the problem is going to be knocking at your door. It's going to be police telling you you're under surveillance because you attended a protest or a rally for something that the government didn't sanction. So with that said, y'all, I'm out. Please like the video, share it, subscribe to the channel. Leave me your comments below. Please be respectful and considerate of the fact that, you know, even though we're supposed to all be in this together, we are not in this all together. So what are you going to do? What's your solution? Because it's coming, and it's coming faster than any of us could have ever imagined. So, food for thought, people. I'm out.